it over to you, Kevin.
And we'll have a dialogue, kind of questions, answers, going back and forth. That's often a good way to do this if you had things you wanted to respond with or anything, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, definitely. All right, we're live on Facebook. I believe, I have to record, or are you recording?
You can record it as well.
All right, I'll let you record it though. I think you're got the
Okay.
options, controls there. Press the red button. Record, please.
You have to allow it.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, start recording. All right, great. So did it come up? Are we recording?
Yes.
Recording. Thank you, Father. All right, so this is let's say an instrumental introduction to one of our panel members that we are beginning to form with what we are doing. So some of you already know what is occurring with Sister Nya and the unlawful taking of her children. However, this is systematic worldwide. So having said that, we have Kevin Annett joining us, which is we're so grateful to have, and Kevin will sit on the panel with us as we expand this out worldwide. Right at this moment, we have several others that will be part of this panel. We may do an introductory with those individually, like we are doing with Kevin now as we proceed forward and comprise the panel of let's say leads and also of victims and what have you. And we do not stop with this. We take it to the extents until the full system worldwide is revealed for what it is. So having said that, what I will do is pass this over to Kevin and a little bit of background, and please take it forward. So without any further ado, this is Kevin Annett, and he will say who he is and what he does. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you for having me, and hello to everybody. I'm speaking to you from the west coast of Canada, what we call Canada, which is actually an Indigenous word that means where the people sit as one around the fire. And that's our vision of the beloved community, where people are not oppressing or harming each other, but are working for the common good of all, and especially the children, who are the most important next generation. And that's why the issue of, I don't even want to call it an issue, it's an atrocity for children to be harmed, trafficked, in any way separated from their natural being, which is to love and to support each other. And I had direct experience of this 30 years ago. I was a newly ordained clergyman in the Protestant Church of the United Church of Canada. And I went with my young family to the west coast of Canada to a place called Port Alberni, which is a lumber community, a logging town, very heavily populated by Indigenous people. These people are known as Nootka or Nuu-chah-nulth, and they are the survivors of the largest genocide in human history on the North American continent that killed many millions of people. And in that area, over 90% of the local Indigenous people had been killed deliberately by smallpox and other forms of germ warfare. And I discovered these survivors quickly when I began my work in my church in the summer of 1992. And I arrived there. Our daughters were 3 years old and a newly born young daughter. And the first Native people I met began to tell me about the murder of children in these things they call residential schools, which was just a camouflage name, a cover name for, these were internment camps. Under the law in Canada, starting in the year 1891, every Native child had to go into one of these places or their parents would go to jail or worse. And it was a law brought in by the government of Canada, the Crown of England, the Vatican. About 2/3 of these internment camps were run by the Catholic Church and by Protestant churches like the Anglican and the United Church that I was a member in, a minister. And over the 107-year period that these places survived, they lasted until the year 1996, over 60,000 children died. Those are from the government and church's own statistics. And that's over half the children who died. Now, to put that in perspective, in the death camps during World War II and before World War II, the Nazi death camps, the average death rate was about 25%, because often inmates were used as slave labor, like at Auschwitz and Birkenau. They didn't want to simply exterminate them, they wanted to use them as slave labor too. But the purpose of these so-called residential schools was outright extermination. And the most basic thing they did was to take healthy children and put them in with the sick who were infected with tuberculosis, and then they never treated them. We have reports of this happening. The government and churches admit they did this. They did this over 60 years. Now, the Nazi regime lasted 12 years. This genocide lasted almost the entire 20th century. And it was never stopped. Every attempt to stop it was shut down by the government and the churches and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So it was ongoing extermination aimed at the children. And it wasn't simply by exposure to disease. They set up special hospitals where they would experiment on children. As a matter of fact, the present pharmaceutical companies that are pushing the COVID drugs, like GlaxoSmithKline, Moderna, Pfizer, all these others, for many years, they used children, not only native children, but other children, to test drugs. The churches would provide the children, and the big pharma would give them money through a thing, for example, called the Eli Lilly Fund. Eli Lilly is an American pharmaceutical company. Big pharma would fund all the theological schools and then get children from the churches to use in experiments. Many of them died from these things. So again, it's this three-headed octopus: big money, church, and government, all working together. And you see that same trinity of evil happening all over Europe, all over the world, in Asia, Africa, anywhere where there are children to be exploited and money to be made and land to be grabbed, resources to be grabbed, then yes, you'll see the same evil happening. So it's a global phenomenon. Today, human trafficking, it's a form of slavery. It involves tens of millions of people. So the murder and exploitation of children is one part of that, just like drug trafficking and arms trafficking are part of that same kind of industry of death. So I began to learn all this as a minister, and I immediately gave a forum for that. I opened up my church to Native people in the community, which was not a very good thing to do from the point of view of the white people there, because they all knew what happened. In my congregation, there were relatives of the very men who had run these death camps. Right down the road, 2 miles, was this residential school, the Port Alberni Residential School, where the first man I met, Danny Gus, he was a native fisherman, he described burying children in the hill behind the school and burning up their remains in the school furnaces. Now, today in Canada, because they've suppressed so much of this evidence, they're even denying there are any mass graves. When 20 years ago, we released a list of 24 of these grave sites, we actually went in and did excavations, forensic evidence proving that these were human remains. All of that blacked out of the media, never reported in Canada. It's been reported in Europe, but never in Canada. It's that kind of censorship all over. When I began to do this, I immediately began to get pressure. People came to me and said I'd lose my job if I carried this on, but I was so successful in building up my church. We had a full house every Sunday, that the local people were okay with it. But what happened eventually was that it was, again, about big money. I found out that there was a big American logging company called Weyerhaeuser. They operate all over the world. I think they're in Southeast Asia. They were grabbing native land, and they were getting it from the United Church, because early on the missionaries had gone in and just taken whatever land they wanted. The church then sold that land to big logging companies, mining companies, a lot of the big Chinese companies that are grabbing up the resources in Canada now, they made deals with these companies handing over the native land. So I found out about that, and I wrote a letter to the church saying that according to our own policy, we're supposed to return the land we've stolen from native people back to the original people. I was just quoting church policy. The next thing I knew, I was fired without cause. They had gone to my church board and said, he's never going to work again, and you're ordered to go along with this. They even went to my wife, Anne, and said, we're going to make sure he never works again anywhere in Canada. So if you want to leave him, we'll pay for your divorce. And that came out later in the divorce trial. And also when I was thrown out of the United Church, the only public defrocking of a minister in United Church history. They made this a big public, kind of a show trial. But they went to Anne and offered her money, and she did leave. She got custody of both my children, in my daughter Claire and Eleanor, in divorce court. You see, it was arranged at every level. And when people saw all this happening, they realized, well, this is more than just one minister being targeted. The church, the state, the courts, they're all cooperating in this. So obviously there's something they're trying to hide. And so as happens in life, when bad things happen to us, the good thing is that it also exposes the evil. And I got fired. I couldn't work anywhere. I was living out of my car. I was penniless. I couldn't see my children very often. But that made me even more determined not to go under, not to be broken, because I know that it was all happening because of their mass murder of innocent children. And I was determined to find out, and try to stop that. And they definitely exposed what had happened. So the good thing that happened after that is I became very popular in the Native community, because they said, well, if this white man was attacked by his own church, we can trust him. And that was I was fired in January 1995. And by that summer, I was working with survivors in the downtown part of Vancouver, where I had done ministry, street ministry before that. And I knew a lot of people. And together we began to build this movement. And it took almost 20 years, but we eventually forced out the truth. That's why the world knows about this. There was an official apology about it by the government of Canada. But that was only after we began a lot of protests. We began occupying churches on Sunday morning peacefully. We created a big stink and got a lot of media attention on this. And a lot more survivors came forward. So, it taught us that when you're being attacked, you never keep it to yourself. You go public with it. You name names. You appeal to other people. You make it really embarrassing for them. And that's the only power you have. When you don't have money and influence, you rely on each other. And I saw some amazing things happen. I'll give you an example. There was a man, William Coombs. He was a Native man living on the street. But when he was in one of these death camps, Catholic schooling in Kamloops, British Columbia, he saw Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip show up one day in 1964. And they took 10 children with them, 7 boys and 3 girls. And these children were never seen again. And that was verified in records. There was a royal visit the year October 1964. We had proof of people who had worked there, who had seen them there. And so when we formed, after exposing these things in Canada and forcing these things out, I was very heavily censored and blacklisted. So I went to Europe. I was invited to Ireland to visit relatives, but also to help survivors of the Catholic Church crimes there as well. And we decided to form an international tribunal to look into this, because it's the same enemy across borders that we're all facing. And that's when we began to bring out the truth of all this. And we held a court case, a common law court case, in which we put these people on trial. Queen Elizabeth we named for having abducted those children. They were issued summonses. Pope Benedict at the time, we listed 30 people who were implicated in these crimes of not only the death of children in the past, but ongoing trafficking and medical genocide and things like that. We also uncovered this thing, the Ninth Circle, which is a very old cult within the Catholic Church. It's been verified by Vatican records that were leaked to us and by survivors. There were 2 Dutch women who came forward who had been raised in this cult. It's an intergenerational sacrificial cult that apparently the high officials of the Catholic Church all have to be participate in order to become cardinals and even popes. And so we brought all this out in the trial. And as a result, just 2 weeks before the verdict, Pope Benedict resigned, the one who is one of our chief defendants, because he had been notified by the Spanish government that he could face arrest if he came to Spain based on the evidence we had shown them about his involvement in the Ninth Circle, ordering bishops to cover up, these crimes. As a matter of fact, there's a standing policy in the Catholic Church called Crimen Solicitanis, and it's been around since 1929. It's a policy ordering every Catholic in the world, not just priests, but every member of the church, to cover up child abuse when it happens. You're not to tell the police. Everyone is silenced. And if you talk about it, you're excommunicated from the church. Now, by ordering people not to tell the police, what they're doing is they're violating the law of every country. They're going outside the child protection laws and saying the rules of the Vatican supersede all other law, including the right to protect children. So that's a global criminal conspiracy. And when we expose that, that's when a lot of the persecution began, because we were really going to the heart of the beast here and saying, look, this is no wonder so many children are harmed in the Catholic Church and other churches, because they have a policy that if you're a child rapist, you can put on a robe and you're protected. And so we began to, as we, the struggle kept expanding all the time, the more repression came down, the more it became exposed. And now we see, that's what kind of led to our present campaign that embraces countries all over the world. I work with people in over a dozen countries now on this work. And so that's kind of what led to the present. It also led to another thing that happened in Canada. When we did our trial, 2012, 2013, Queen Elizabeth was found, along with the Pope and others, were found guilty of crimes against humanity. And there was an arrest warrant order issued against them, because even heads of state and heads of churches are liable under the law as a human being for what they did. And so it meant that the head of state of Canada was a criminally convicted felon. Well, at that point, people have to, under law, you cannot support a regime that committed genocide, even if it's your own regime. You can't pay them taxes. You can't participate. You need a political alternative. And so in 2015, 200 delegates in Canada from Native and non-Native people formed the Republic of Canada, which was a sovereign republic based on the will of the people. And it severed all ties with the crown. We stand under our own jurisdiction, issue our own laws. For example, when the COVID measures came out, the Republic local assemblies and courts issued their own laws saying these COVID measures are not medically certified, they're unhealthy, and also, we basically say they're null and void. They're not warranted, and we're not obligated to follow those statutes, because under the law, it doesn't matter what statute the government passes. If you don't agree with it and you're not harming anyone, you don't have to go along with it, right? So that taught people another very important lesson, that the change is going to have to come from us. It's not going to come from the government and churches and courts that have all been profiting from the crime, including the crime of trafficking children. So a lot of this is found at murderbydecree.com, our main website, republicofcanada.org. And also, I've written 28 books now about this, which you can all see online at Amazon. The funny thing is that the proof is all there. We brought out all the evidence about it. But the more you bring out the evidence, they either have to kill you or totally fog you. I think the Nazis had a term called night and fog, where you surround your victim with not just censorship, but you erase their memory from the public record. And that's, with the internet now, you can do that very effectively. So even though
they haven't done it with you yet, and they can't, and with us. So
and that's why I appreciate. That's why I appreciate. I've been banned from Facebook and all social media for many years, but we have rely on other people to bring out this truth. So maybe I'll leave it at that, and we can, if you have any questions or comments or anything.
Of course, thank you, Kevin. Several times I was going to ask questions, but you were just on such a good fluent roll that I didn't want to interrupt. My first question would be, how has all of this, if it has, devastated your belief and trust in God?
It's over the long run, it's strengthened it because I know that I wouldn't have survived this long without that. Um,
God wasn't real. Yeah.
right. It's like I have, on my mother's side, I have indigenous relatives because we immigrated from Scotland, but then we intermarried with the Cree and the Ojibwe in Winnipeg, which is central Canada. And my indigenous relatives always say that that which is sacred has no name, and and you shouldn't talk about it too much because it's inviolable. It's known to us and within ourselves. But when you turn it into a religion, which is imposed on other people, it becomes its opposite. And well, the word spiritual is from spiritu, which means breath, right? I mean, it's life and it's within all of us. Whereas religion means religio, which means to tie people together. It's in an artificial kind of, and that's an old Roman idea, you know, that it's really like the emperor. There's one truth and it's imposed on everybody, and we have the right to kill you if you don't believe it in what we believe. That's really the basis of genocide, saying a group does not have the right to live because they're not like us. And so, yeah, I would say that, and I've had many experiences where that presence is even stronger now. My trust. I always felt Christ was my brother, my ally. I identified with him very directly. My sermons were always based on that he said it's within us. The kingdom of heaven is within us. So we're to share that with each other. And that can't be explained to you by a priest or a pope or a bishop or a, you know, it's nothing external. It's within us. He said, my kingdom isn't of this world, but it's meant to embody within ourselves. And that's all I was ever trying to do. And it's become even stronger now. It's been affirmed. Otherwise, I don't think I'd still be walking around, you know.
Have you had any profound experiences by God, if you will, externally, by Christ, by God?
I didn't hear the first part of your question.
Oh, have you had any profound experiences at knowing that God is a separate entity
Well,
or prime creator, which I love to use, prime creator, creation of all things,
the source of all, one of the
source?
words, the indigenous word, also is Wakantanka among our people, which means the great mystery. Um, but yeah, I have. One of them, I can give you a few examples. On two occasions,
Please.
and I don't know if I don't tell this to many people because I don't know if they believe it, but maybe that's not the criteria I should use. But
We believe it.
okay, I was in the poorest part of Vancouver where I did a lot of my ministry, and I was set up to be killed. One day, poor woman, came to me and said, "They're evicting me. I need your help." And it was a setup. And I went up into her apartment, her slum apartment, and there were two guys waiting there for me with a knife. So I knew it was over. The next thing I knew, I was out on the street. I hadn't moved. I hadn't, and I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I'm not hallucinatory. The next thing I knew, I was just there on the street. And naturally, I got out of there as quickly as I could. But you know, thank you. Right. And the same thing happened in Rome. Because one thing I did there in 2009, I was invited to do a ceremony at St. Peter's Square in Rome, outside the Vatican. And I was there, and then all of a sudden I realized, you know, what's really needed here is some kind of exorcism on that entity, whatever it is, in Rome. And I had with me the remains of soil from a grave of children at one of these Catholic death camps in Canada. So I did it, and I had done an exorcism before with some Native people. So I knew some of the ritual, and I just did it. I called out that entity. And it's the first stage of an exorcism where you get the entity to name itself, and then it loses its power, and it's easy to then be banished and to leave the possessed person. When I was there, this is amazing. When you're in St. Peter's Square, it's heavily monitored. There's Vatican police, there's Roman police. You're not allowed to do any kind of protest. As a matter of fact, a group of Native women had tried doing a ceremony there, and they'd been instantly arrested the year before. I'm standing there in my robes, and the police are walking right by me, and they're looking right at me like I'm not there, right? And I'm allowed to do that. The next morning, 8 a.m. in Rome, a tornado hits. Bang, first time in about 40 years, a tornado hits the center of Rome. And that same week, the first European reports in the media described the role of Pope Benedict at the time in covering up child abuse. It had been exposed. I had been at the right place, and it wasn't about me, it was just acting through me at that moment in the right place. Like Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, it's not about your power, it's about where you are at a given moment, to be the focus of what needs to happen. And that's what happened. So, those are two examples of that power, that working in us. And
thank you. Yeah, those are so beautiful. And, it also takes it further to indicate that the role you are doing here, like all of us, if you will, that are awake and in our divinity, that it's divinely ensured that we play these important roles there, because it is about the beast system, as we know. And in this great time, everything, yes, is being revealed. And there are many of us, including you, Kevin, and Sister Nya and I here, that knows God and has also had, these beautiful, profound experiences. But it's all the same with it. It's divinely ensured, where you cannot be killed because we are divinely placed here to play these important roles. Um, with this, I was looking, I'm fully familiar with your background, Kevin. I've been following that for years because it is tied into the divine work that I do as well, that we do. Um, and what I typically say, the current system worldwide is the beast system, and it has to go, and we are working upon that. And this is an important uh, most important subject now, which is coming up about really saving the children. You see lots of stories out there and indications towards it, but it takes a little bit more. And this is what we're doing at exposing the system. Now, having said this, in the Netherlands, I believe, wasn't it exposed there perhaps by um, some of your people where there was a cult, a sacrifice going to begin, and where the police actually went in and rescued people, which accredited what you were doing? Do you wish to share a little bit about that?
yeah, that was one of our victories. Again, involving this ninth circle. It was a woman, the first woman who approached me from Holland. Her name was Toos Nienhaus, and she had been raised in the ninth circle. She had seen Ratzinger and Prince Philip and others at these rituals. And it's very close to the Catholic Mass, in which they believe that the blood, the literal blood and body of Christ, or in this case, an innocent child, is life-giving. And so they torture the child to death and then cannibalize it. They eat its parts. And if you don't, the participants have to take part. And if they don't, they're killed instantly. And so Toos witnessed all this. There's actually a 2.5-hour interview with her still up on YouTube, which I can send you the link to, where she describes this. But at one of the, she named a number of these castles. And I'm trying to remember the name of the particular castle. I think it was in Belgium, connected to the royal family. And it was taken part, like they always tend to do, either in Catholic churches in a sub-basement area, these rituals. We notified contacts we had in Interpol. It's like in any system, there's honest people and then the dishonest. And these cops did act on it. There was a member of the European Parliament, Laurent Louis, who also helped us do that. And they broke in and stopped this thing. It also happened once in Montreal at the Marie Rendemont Cathedral in downtown Montreal. We stopped a sacrifice there. But of course, the people were let off after, never charged. And in fact, one of the policemen who helped stop that was then found dead of suicide in the police station. So I mean, there's always a consequence when people do this, but it shows you that, it can be stopped. People just need the knowledge and the courage and the love to be able to act on what we know, right?
Yeah. So this is still ongoing today worldwide, let's say, with the Ninth Circle. To my knowledge, you have severed the work you and others were doing, had at least severed the underground railway, if you will, to Victoria, BC. And I had monitored your work from a distance and can confirm the great work you did in respect to that. But having said this, it's still ongoing today. And my next question is because Sister Nya here is in Austria and experiencing the unlawful taking of her children. And this goes with this here, it goes beyond what is normal, as we know, because we know the intent, the manipulation with the system to cover things up. And that is very obvious here in this situation. But having said that, can you give us any background information on Austria and perhaps any of the Ninth Circle workings in Austria? Do you have anything for Austria from us right at this time? We know it's prevalent worldwide, but Austria. Thank you.
I wish I did. I know there have been. It hasn't been a country where we have done a lot of work yet. Although southern Germany and Munich, of course, was an area that we were well acquainted with because of Ratzinger's role there. His brother was one of the archbishops there, who was later, I think, even convicted of molesting children. So, I mean, now that you mentioned that, I can start asking around. I do, we have networks over in Europe. As a matter of fact, in July, late summer into the fall, I'm coming to Europe, and I'll be speaking in Italy, France, the Netherlands, anywhere else where there's the interest. I'm going to be there for a couple of months, so we can definitely work together, and kind of off the internet, we can talk more about how to do work there and finding out more of what is going on there. So, is it? Could I ask if has there been any help or support, Nia, for what your
Right
situation?
now in Austria, I'm trying to gathering as much as possible, but the thing is, everyone, especially those who are experiencing the same situation than they are very much in fear. So they are also suppressed. It's always the same pattern and how they used to come in and to turn things around. And I also started a lot of investigation through the history, how it is connected with the experiments, how Austria is connected to Rothschilds, and to other kind of things like, for example, with Spiegelgrund, where a lot of children have died, back then, which were connected to the Second World War. And, for example, all those people who were involved into this, they came to, they were sued in front of the court, but nothing happened to them.
Yeah.
So they got back where they, to the same institution. And what I also figuring out is that there is a lot of money involved, meaning like Austria is a lot in debt, but at the same time, it puts like 2023, it puts around 906 million euros into this whole thing with the children, meaning when a child is taken away, the government pays for the child, but also for the psychological evaluator, everything involved, with the court system and what have you. But also, what I see is also that is also tied in, with the Ukrainian wars, with all the refugees, with all the children gone missing. And I also started to talk with mothers, in Germany. I'm it's much more that I have more connection in Germany, some parts of it here in Austria. So I started to have connection, with ones who are working in organizations who are protecting children rights as well. And, it's all the same. So they're working there for 15 years and they know what's going on, right?
Right. Yeah.
And, there's a lot of things with that. So I'm still gathering more. Because it happened to I think on the 21st of March, where the children were taken away, and they are very highly evolved ones, and also with strong gifts, as I am. And they also discriminate and target me because of my spiritual belief, right? Because they already knew who we are. So well, not much right now, but they are coming in. I'm still
Yeah.
gathering. It's a lot of things to do and to work. To be honest, I never did this before,
No.
and it's how it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are coming in and then they left. Because the amount of information and to know how the system really works, and what is in the background, it's sometimes so overwhelming for once. And
Yeah, it is.
mostly some prefer to turn a blind eye on it rather than to go more into compassion and to feeling, or to go into
Mhm.
your power and stepping up. So
Yes.
there's also a lot of people telling I, don't move forward, don't do that. And I said, I don't have any way now, because they never intend to give me the children back, never. So the only way forward, is to bring that to the surface, and to gather as much people as possible.
You're right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same. Everything you're describing could be a description of Canada or America or like wherever we work. It's the same beast. And one thing we found about the Ninth Circle is their networks extend all through the courts, the judges, the social workers, government. Most of the child trafficking today happens right within the government system of child protection, supposed. So we have to create our own system outside that. Not only our own republic, but our own courts, our own way to protect each other, right? And we have tremendous power because it's out there among the people, but by leading by example, by overcoming, allowing our personal pain of the loss of our children, to turn that into a great power for all children, right? One day your children will be able to thank you so much for what you're doing now. From their pain, from yours, is going to sprout this beautiful thing. I know that from my own life, and I know I'm sure you know that too. Have learned that it's the only way we really learn by going through that fire, and then we become, nothing can harm, nothing can touch us, nothing can touch them, because that sacred fire is growing from all of us. And I think maybe it's why we had to go through this, to bring that new light into the world. But when you bring a light in, it burns you, right? But we're stronger than
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
May I just add something
Yeah.
quickly here? Kevin, so what has come up as well, and Sister Nya was probably going to share it. So in Italy and Austria, since 2021, I think, over 20,000 children in each country, 20,000 in Italy, over 20,000 in Austria, refugee children have vanished. The next in Europe, the next closest country, I believe, is Belgium, with 3,000 reported missing, if you will. Um, so, what I need to say is this is indicative of a very huge ring, if you will. So, we're just
Mhm.
touching the tip of the iceberg of what is actually occurring.
Right.
And during the course of this, yes, go ahead if you wish.
No, you finish. Go ahead.
Yeah. So also what we're seeing is with the institution, the child care services in Austria, if you will, while they have the children, they're beginning to conform and program them psychologically as well, which is very evident. One important thing when Sister Nya is speaking with her children, she's not allowed to physically visit them. So the direct duty of care from the mother is violated.
Right.
that precious nurturing and contact. But also, what they are doing is when Nya speaks with her children, there's a supervisor there that if
Yeah.
Nya begins to say things like the children are beginning to receive love and care letters from their friends worldwide, the supervisor butts in, no, you can't talk about that. And so, yes,
Are
go
they
ahead.
held? What facility they're being held in right now? What kind of facility is it?
It's called, in Austria, it's called the Crisis Intervention Center. It's a center normally with children between 4 and 18. So a lot of children, I mean, I'm in a small village, so in a small state. But
Mhm.
I have investigated a lot, about the sexual abuse, in those buildings, but also, that they are putting and seducing them with medicaments. But because I knew everything of this, we created a lot of pressure, before. But also, I'm very grateful for your words before, because the thing is, I was prepared since a while for this, and so are my children prepared. So um yes, so they are in that center right now, and they are locked up, so sometimes they're allowed to go out. So I didn't see them since almost 1 month, and I'm only allowed to have 10 minutes call per day with them right now.
Is this what's the name of the organization that runs? Is it a government agency or a company?
um I'm not quite sure, but I think it's run by the government, but I'm not quite sure, because what I'm
Yeah.
seeing, because there are more organizations, so I'm digging out a lot of more informations. But what my conclusion is that they are all together. It doesn't matter
Right.
if it's a church, the child welfare, or those
Yeah.
organization, or they are helping children with special needs. They are all connected with each other, and also the school system as well.
Well, we found, for example, in Canada, there's a thing in Ontario called the Children's Aid Society, but it's actually a private company, and they get paid up to $50,000 for every child that they take out of a home and put into a foster care home. So it's hugely lucrative child trafficking system, supposedly run by the government. In fact, run like often tax collection agencies are not government at all. They're offshore companies that siphon money, into the big banks like the Vatican Bank. Um, so again, it's follow the money and you'll see who's running it. And the reason I mentioned that is normally you could go to a court and get an order uh, that your children are released because you have to show cause, that they were abducted illegally without cause, the whole bit. And if you try that and it doesn't work, you learn how the system operates. And there's more evidence for you. You see, the courts are colluding. This is why we can't work. So every experience can be good because you learn something. There isn't any final defeat or victory. We just learn more and more and start sharing that with people to teach people how we have to take action ourselves defend our children. And so, anyway, that's why I wondered about who was running it.
If I may, one of the things we've been doing, I'm well versed in law and
Yeah.
natural law, if you will, Kevin. So one of the approaches we have taken with this as it progresses and evolves was yeah, sent letters to their ministry and to their government asking for any proof of ownership of the children and
Right.
giving them 72 hours to reply. So, where there has been no reply because they cannot substantiate any ownership of the children,
Right.
they also then are reminded that they must release the children immediately into the care of the mother. So there's also been cease and desist orders that
Yeah.
have been sent, and um, they have been informed that there's legal activity going on here. And there is the statement of facts, which are incontestable facts of laws broken and violation, and also perjury, if you will, in court. So what is occurring is that we're seeing the impunity, but where they are being so insistent, if you will, on taking these children, as you said, it's presenting that there is an underlying deeper intent involved with this.
Well, it's like the broader issue of why is there always so much child abuse and why is it not a crime? In Canada, the mandatory sentence for raping a child is only 6 months in prison. So, I mean, in a society where the few rule the many, you need to traumatize people at a young age or at an older age by the fear of losing your children. That's how you keep people in line. So the church and the state both have an interest in children being harmed. And, that's the bigger kind of motive often. And there's a lot of money to be made. And so one of the tools that we've used is you give the judge a notice of liability, personal liability, saying, I'm holding you personally liable. If anything happens to my children, I'm going to hold you liable and sue you under the law. That also gives them a bad, reputation publicly. And, you always aim at the weaknesses of your enemy. The two weaknesses of big institutions are their money and their public image. And that's why the churches and governments had to admit to genocide in Canada, because we threatened both of them when we started occupying churches and, making them look bad, bringing out the truth of what they've done. So we can do the same thing, but it's not something you can do very well by yourself. And that's why I wondered if, you have people immediately around you where you live who can be a daily help for you, because it's so hard on your own to keep going with this. Like a Zoom call isn't enough, right? We need to be physically with each other, right, to do this.
Yes, so I do have, since this all happens, I have collected all the evidence, I have recorded everything, but also I always took someone as a witness with I.
Oh,
So,
good.
but
Good.
it's a different, they are all different kind of consciousness, but what I do love is that they have a great heart and they are very objective.
Good.
So that's amazing as well. So the ones who are now coming in are more informed and educated about the system, and about how the child welfare is working. So I started, to connect with them by, since a couple of days. So, and gathering more like women who are already working in organization. So they will also step in to help. But all of those, don't know about the natural laws, and that you can get to the judge and take them to tell them that he's responsibility for that, right? So it's also about educating others as well, as I see it, because with everything that is going on. So it's also for I'm the whole day, you're doing researches, then you're doing then you have to purge, and then you have to cry, and then you have to write something, and connecting with ones, gathering information, chatting with Rick, getting through the information, what do we have, what can we do, and yes, but it's keep on moving. But honestly, sometimes I'm reaching a point, where I like, oh my gosh, that's quite intense. And then as you said, every time when you reach that low point and you get through it, you get back and you get stronger, right? So
Well, and we
May
don't,
I add?
uh,
Yeah,
I had
go
a,
ahead, Kevin, and then
I
I
just had
wish
another,
to add something.
I just had another little story that one of the things that prepared me for this was back in the 1980s when I was preparing for the ministry as a student. I went on a tour of the Guatemalan refugee camps in southern Mexico. And these were Guatemalan Mayan indigenous people who had been forced out of Guatemala by the war, by genocide there, many of them killed. And I went into one of the refugee camps, and there was a guy who used to be a Catholic priest, but like me later, he was thrown out of the church because the bishop didn't like the work he was doing. And he was there, and every day they would be discovering bodies in the river of people that had been killed in Guatemala, floating up the river. and there was a price on his head. The local landowner had hired some men to go kill him because they didn't like what he was doing, bringing refugees onto the land. And I said to him, his name was Fidel, Brother Fidel, and he said, which means faithful. And I said, do you ever get scared and want to leave? And he said, yeah, every day I want to get into my Jeep and drive away from here because I know they want to kill me. And I said, well, what stops you? He said, whenever I get frightened, I go and look at the poorest child in the camp and I realize she can't get away, right? And then she gives me the courage to go another day, right? And that's, I always remember that story because it was helping to prepare me, because every time the pain of losing my daughters and of friends who were killed and all this, I realized, okay, if I give up, somebody's going to die. Some child is going to die if I just give up. I don't have the right to do that. And then I realized, okay, I feel a pat on the shoulder from heaven and they say, good, you got to keep going. That's how we do it together. And the day, one of the other things is William Coombs, remember I told you he had seen Queen Elizabeth take those children. And we went into a church one morning, Catholic church. And again, it was an act of God because normally the police and the Catholics are surrounding the church to keep us out. But that day the door was wide open and there was nobody there. So we went in there and William couldn't go near a Catholic church. When he heard a church bell, he started getting sick because when he was a boy, they did some horrible tortures to him and he couldn't even see it. But that day we went in, we stood there peacefully with a banner saying all the children need a proper burial. And I looked around and there was William inside the church with us. And the beautiful thing about that is that, he was standing there handing out flowers. The priests were so angry. One of them grabbed me. It was actually trying to push me out of the church. And finally, the priest gave up and left. And it was just us talking to the people in the church. And I looked around and there was William and he's smiling and handing out flowers to people. And I said to him, what help? How come you were able to do that? You couldn't go near. He said, I didn't want to let any of you down. I didn't want to be left out. I wanted to be there with you. And that was stronger than this lifelong fear. And he stopped drinking that week. He was a bad alcoholic. And suddenly that did more for him than all of the counseling for years. Because why? Because we were there. 2 or 3 are gathered. There is Christ. There is our power together. And that's the only way we can really change it is together. That's something that evil can't control. We get that strength from each other. We're physically together doing that. And when we left, all the Catholics who were sitting, they all stood up as we left. They all knew, to honor what we're doing. They knew the right thing to do. And so we were, that day, when you say, have you had example of the divine? I mean, that day, hearts and minds, we won over, to do the right thing. And I've always looked for other opportunities to do that, because when you see those miracles happen, you just want to share it with people and want to keep doing it. Right? Anyway, I'm sorry to go on like that, but those are important things.
No, that's
Lovely.
so
Thank you
beautiful,
so
so
much.
important. And, that is our inspiration now, what you're sharing with everyone. Once you stand, you are supported by the power of God, the Holy Spirit, whatever you wish. And, Kevin here tonight is evidence of that. When they tried to murder him, God, if you will, put him on the street. And, I have other stories as well. But importantly, what I say, Kevin, we are taking the steps with the roots, if you will, as I mentioned before. Most of these, if not all, that were acting illegally have been also informed that they were acting illegally and given the opportunity to do the right thing. However, they ignore it and still persist. And this is one of the reasons, even though Sister Nya is using the higher divine law, they still just ignore it.
Yeah.
So as a result of this, we are going worldwide public, as you said, with the public sentiment worldwide united to dissolve the system and expose it for what it is. And your instrumental work, if you will, could also say divinely all of the work you did also was for this very time and
Mhm.
your participation in this. Now, with the panel, what I wish to say, we are having, yes, ones come forward with Sister Nya connecting groups. So we're in the early stages of creating a greater unity. What is initially coming in, which is divinely impressive, is for you to be on the panel. Also, another journalist, also, uh, let's say, a journalist, but let me say perhaps spokespersons like yourselves or souls to come in here and add their background work as well as we comprise this panel to give to the world. So let me say, yes, a lot of things are going on, and we're seeing the catalyst to support this beginning to divinely emerge because again, this is a very important divine mission. And I wish to say we are in the end times, the final judgment, but at the same time, the new world is being created. And we have been divinely given this job to stand firmly and to unite to end this once and for all and save the children.
Amen. Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, I was just going to ask. My plan, I'm going to be in Europe by the end of July, and I want to stay till the fall, September, speak at universities and places. But let's talk more in the future about how we can all meet up. And I don't know logistically how to do that yet, but I'll leave that in your hands about how you think I could best help you where you are, both of you, and we can make some plans about that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm, honestly, I'm going day by day
Yeah.
how the
No.
divine gave me persons or
Mm.
informations.
Yeah.
So, but I would very appreciate your support, assistance, and what have you.
Any way I can. And I'll be speaking in northern Italy, and I have friends I stay with there, as well as friends. So that's relatively close to Austria. We can just. Are you
It's
in the?
close to me as well.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, are you in the western part of the
I'm in the
country?
south. I'm in the
On the
south.
south?
I'm very
Oh,
close to Italy.
oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, maybe you could also travel down to come to the events we're doing in Italy. Uh,
I had to do a lot of activation and divine work last year in Italy.
oh, good. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
So, what I anticipate with this, and of course, there's always divine timing, but I anticipate this escalating in our favor, the public publicity, if you will, to quickly, as soon as possible, return the children to Sister Nya, but not only Sister Nya, all of the children that are abducted by the systems worldwide. So, from the US, as we know, with their child care services and the institutional abuse and much more than that, the crimes involved in it. Also from the US, from the UK, and from Germany, from Austria, brother Kevin, from Canada. Um, so we're bringing all together and it is growing. And currently I am waiting for some journalists to come in to also cover the story and to increase the publicity worldwide. Nothing stops this. It is divine, and it is the end of the systematic abuse and by the beast system, if you will. So it's all crumbling, and this is part of the construction to that effect. And that is the way that I view this and the way that I know it with my connection to Mother, Father, God, Source as well, Prime Creator. So we're doing.
Yeah, maybe you could send me your email, or could, so we could stay in touch.
Yes, yes, sure.
I'll put. Is there a chat box right here? Yeah, in the chat, I'll put my email.
We're live with this on Facebook, and but nevertheless, we always can do whatever we need to do quickly.
Yeah.
So the great news is, Kevin, you weren't censored, and yes, you're all around the world and in Canada as well. So, which is great, and a lot of work done in Manitoba. I loved where the RCMP actually were coming to be learned in, let's say, more of an absolute law than their conditioning and ignorance to real law, if we will. So I was pleased to see that as well.
Well, many police are actually can be on our side. I mean, they are sympathetic. They see the corruption up close. They just don't see an alternative, and that's always what people need. People may seem to support the system, but it's just because there's no alternative, and we've got to show them how that can work, right?
So now, yes, thank you so much. We haven't had the time to speak about it, so Brother Kevin, I know you're not informed about GPMS.WORLD, what we are doing. But just to share this, GPMS.WORLD is the replacement system. It is the divine replacement system worldwide that replaces this current beast system. And what we are doing is ratifying it by every man, woman, and child. And once we have the majority worldwide, as we know, the majority rules, then it is the new system. It is what's been also promised and prophesied about. So it is happening now, and I need to add that. And with this, all of your children worldwide are saved because it is the new system, and the actual evil, if you will, is eradicated from our timeline and our reality. And it is the kingdom of heaven, as above, so below, and it is time. So I just wanted to share that. However, this is very important and instrumental at confronting the system and saying no more. And also, tearing it down by the system losing its public support. So when the public's majority public support is with the replacement system of GPMS.WORLD, where it's being ratified individually, it is enacted into law. It cannot be contested. It cannot be opposed. And even at this time, it cannot, because it's under the simple lawful premise of do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
So we got it, but we're going through this destruction while the construction is occurring simultaneously. And
Good.
it's all of us. We all play a role in it.
Yep. So are we done for today, or I just asked because I have another call coming up in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I believe, Sister
Okay.
Nya, is it anything you wish to add or before we go?
Yes, I would express my gratitude. amazing and powerful work you did, Kevin. I'm so grateful for everything you done before to make this mission work more. It's just like someone has to go first, and I think it was very intense and challenging for you. But also it's so lovely, to see you in that trust and faith, and in your love as well. So that empowers I as well, because I also always think about all the children.
Yeah.
So, but also, I will also love to use this live, this conversation, to spread it more
Good.
into all channels, and also ask, for anyone who wants to step in and to gather with us, to stand up against this unlawful and the violation of human rights, the violation of children's rights, these horrific things that are happening back in the background, to stop, to step forward, and to contact
Yeah.
us. That would be great.
Good. No, it's been really good talking to both of you, and I look forward to talking to you more. And if you write to me, yeah, I'll give you some more specific things that might help in terms of what to do. Maybe, but I'm going to start asking around for contacts and people we know in your part of the world as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I would
Yeah,
really,
what I
really
can,
appreciate it.
yeah, I was going to say something, but Father said no. But it's possible Kevin may share that with you as well. It's another very powerful checkmate instrument, if you will, that can be done as well, and that will go public when we do that. That financially burdens them, if you will, just to allude to what it is. So, having said this, we anticipate having a panel meeting in the near future. However, what I suggest is some more panel members, like Kevin, that we need to just give a little bit more of their background where it's so lengthy, to substantiate our panel and to make it, most powerful and presentable to the world. So everything is instrumental to that effect. So we will
Would
have that. We work on, yes, go ahead.
would I was just going to ask if would it be possible to send me a copy of today's broadcast? Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. So having said that, love, light, and gratitude,
Thank you.
everyone. And yes, unite, no fear. We got this, and it's with the power of God that it is time to do this. So thank you all.
Okay.
Love, light, and gratitude.
Thank
Love,
you.
light, and gratitude to everyone.
I'll talk to you
Uh,
soon.
Yes, we will.
Thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
Yes, we'll speak soon. All right. Yeah, sister, I believe you can stop the recording, or you just did that. Amazing.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yep.
Oh, you have to do this.
Oh, I
You're
got to
the
do it. All right. Let me look at it. How do you do that? I can, let's pause recording.
Perfect.
Oh, all right. So great. Thank you, Kevin. I believe he's gone. He has another call. So, uh, Facebook, I think we just got to end it here, and
Yes.
then it shuts it down on Facebook.
Yes,
So
I will
great.
leave and you shut it down.
All
Thank
right.
you.
I'll give you a call in a moment if you wish, after we shut it down.
Great. Okay.
All
Love,
right.
light, and
Bye.
gratitude.
Love, light, and gratitude. I pressed the red button.